So it seems I have to simplify what I meant by migration. Why I said the red line is sort of like this narrow corridor where everybody has to get through. The red line regulated population and opportunity, and at the moment the red line is still there. It keeps communal farmers from exercising their right to expand and sell on the commercial market, knowing they have the biggest stock of livestock, the richest sand in the country. So since their hard work is not rewarded, what do? They go through the corridor to go find work. It's not just about opportunity in terms of cattle, it's also about trade. If the red line is open, trade opportunities will increase. I said it before, the Namibian government has not done much since independence in terms of infrastructure. The roads that have been built, yet again, are narrow. The rail line that has been built is not utilized because the locomotives that use the rail line are outdated. And to make things worse, the route that they took, they did not think about strategically, and not a lot of trade goes around there. So they are not cargo trains, and they are putting the Trans-Namib in a lot of trouble because the adaptability is not there. So when I say yet again, and Job heeds and exercises the instructions. So saying he isn't doing it alone doesn't take away from the fact that as a delegate, he's delegating down below, empowering the people from his village, which a lot of people aren't doing. I had to go back. When I got back, I was surprised at the lack of opportunities that are not being utilized, talent that's going away to drink. So the only thing is to think about self-investment, self-development. That is how it works. Private enterprise usually pushes for new barriers. That's how entrepreneurship works. The government will follow along when they see the value, not before, because that kind of risk is not validated, meaning there are not driven people that take up the risk of investment. And what do you have? You have a lot of tenderpreneurs. You have a lot of political opportunists. Everybody wants to grab and eat from it. And the people become low-wage workers. And saying that this is going to end is definitely going to put a lot of strain on a lot of small businesses from people who don't pay their workers the minimum wage, which is minimal in itself and needs to be raised. So the bar for business and entrepreneurship is rising. But that bottleneck, it has to go. I said it, African men are African women, just African. You go into town or wherever you go, even if it's overseas, you make your mark up on the wall, and then you go back. Your real home is the village. That migration will happen. A lot of people will retire and want to go back. They want to go back and sit down, it's retirement. But that's not we're planning ahead. We want those communities to develop too. So even though everything is left here and is like, this is yours now it's your responsibility. And Dimba Toiva gave this instruction. It's up to you now, you guys, the young ones. When I say young, I'm not discriminating against age. I'm speaking in terms of he feels he's done enough. Most feel they've done enough, but they don't feel like they can leave the responsibility to the young ones. That's why they have given me the responsibility. I proved myself. I had to prove myself. Working with with the former President Pohamba, and at that time obviously I was more arrogant. It was before I prepared myself this time, and this time I have shown my ability and drive, and most importantly the ability to prioritize. And I am prioritizing a waste of resources. These are human resources. We will only have more and more people going to the urban areas. They are technically economic refugees. It means they are not getting the money that they need there to sustain themselves and their families. So they come to the so-called urban areas to get money that they can send back home. Just like those who go to America or wherever, where there is higher currency, work and then send money back home. So we have all of these problems with us, where men are the most preferred in most industries. Women, not as much, and the culture of women being taken care of has only grown due to the lack of opportunity, not because women are lazy. This statement that I made, that a man must work hard so that a woman doesn't have to, is not saying the woman is incapable, but it means if you have a team set up, you can have a facility to help you with your home, and then you can walk. But this means it can be interchangeable. So in turn, the man provides his spouse, partner, with the resources needed to engage the market. That 2 for 2 is needed because of the development gap, and because tradition has not yet been wiped out. So when you still have a tradition and a culture that views women in a particular way, and now we have a lot of men that can get jobs because the jobs are preferably, supposedly, for women, so the men are left out that market, and the woman has to be the breadwinner. You see, that lack of perspective in terms of careers is what I was referring to. And some traditional part of me which does say, as a man, you take care of your family. If you can't, you feel worthless, you might feel depressed and down. It's absolutely understandable, because we have to change the tradition of what a family is during this generation, so that the next generation has a good example. We have to build upon examples. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying realistically, there is so much that can be done. You can put it into policy, but you cannot persuade people in an instant. Who are the people that work in a lot of the fields in the north? It's women. It is women. But they are not empowered economically. Then the men feel, okay, since the lady is doing that, I'll go look for jobs somewhere. Send money back to the wife and kids. Why? Because the economic poverty, and I say economic poverty because using money for trade, not having the money that you need. When there is that word need, it makes it poverty when you don't have what you need. Poverty is not just about food. social poverty, homes. That can be poverty. You can have people that can afford to pay rent. Because the rent is high, they can't afford proper meals. And then that's where you get the sacrifice of sacrificing paying so much for shelter and just building a shack, because at least you can feed your family decently, pay for school, save, and so forth. So seeing the way society works means doing different, aspiring different, and building upon the foundation that has been set for us. So empowering women is a must economically, socially. It's not saying women should become dominant. So that's what I mean by migration, how migration works. There are different ways people are impacted that lead them to want to migrate, and they can be refugees even within their own country, depending on what was lacking that forced them to flee. They don't move because they want to. Everybody would rather stay where they were born, at home, and so forth. You can move and call it travel, but when you have to and it's a need, you become a refugee in some sense. So what do refugees do? They go where there is asylum and opportunity. This has to be understood. It's not just wars that create refugees. A lot of us have parents who are refugees, economic refugees, who had to come here because of the lack of opportunity there. Or even if they are transferred to go work in another region, they have to. They are not moving because they want to. It's because of the job you need. So creating opportunities where they are lacking is part of the vision. But first, we have to identify what it is exactly that's missing. We can do this by looking at countries that have already overcome these problems. That's what's happening. There has to be research. When you've done the research, development is application. So even though a lot of insider information won't be given out immediately, that's because the situation is being analyzed. It's how progress works. You have to progress upon something. And these social handicaps, are the challenge. So yes, more to come. Salute.